صحبه وأنتم بخير. Ramadan Mubarak upon all of you. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted us the blessing of reaching the month of Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the blessing of completing it, and that we may find the bounties and the ajr that He has hidden for us in Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala, for on the Day of Judgment. And may this month be a month of ease and victory and success for our brothers and sisters who are suffering all across the world, and specifically in Gaza. So, this I used to do different series before Taraweeh, and subhanAllah, when I did this last year, I guess the amount I usually try and gather as much feedback from people as possible, verbally and even written. And we gathered feedback about these sessions, and it was overwhelmingly positive. I hope that we got the proper reflection from those who attended it. But the goal of it, I think, is to help people understand what the juz' that's going to be recited is about, like what you're going to be hearing within Taraweeh, within that night. I talk to you about the theme of the surahs or the juz' that you're listening to, and then kind of reflect on certain verses, so that when you're reading, you have a little bit more to go by, inshallah ta'ala. So that's the goal of doing this, and I think that makes sense for especially in a place time or a place where not everyone has the Arabic language proficiency, inshallah ta'ala, of reading it, inshallah they will, but this offers you, inshallah, an alternative. Alhamdulillah, it's, subhanAllah, when Ramadan starts, the vibe is just so different. The moment Salat al-Maghrib, you hear Adnan al-Maghrib at the beginning of Shahr Ramadan, even if the Prophet ﷺ, even had he not told us that certain things change, the Muslims would have assumed things changed. Like, even if we didn't have those hadith that told us this was happening at the Maghrib, all of us would have said, yeah, but something must happen because there's something different about this month altogether. And you just sense it inside your heart, you sense it in your soul, you sense it in the vibe of human beings and their excitement. It's really funny. Like, it's very beautiful, the fact that you have children who are excited about Ramadan, even though they're going to be starving all day long. Like, even though you know that starting tomorrow morning, starting tomorrow Fajr, you are hungry for 30 days straight, struggling for food and struggling for sleep, and yet we look forward to it. SubhanAllah, it's just a very meaningful. It's a conundrum. It's a beautiful one though, and it's just something that I've always found interesting to reflect upon. Alhamdulillah. To start out, I just want to point out this. Please. So this one over here. All right, have one of these, and then lie it down in front of you. Don't put it where the person in front of you is going to be standing, or where they're going, or right behind their feet. Lie it down in front of you where your torso will be when you're making sujood. So it's not really bothering you, just kind of keep it there. Bring these, don't bring the plastic water balls. We talked about this a few years before, and alhamdulillah, there's a lot of generous individuals who bring water balls. They mean well, and they want to leave us as a sadaqah. We just don't want to have the plastic water balls. Just bring something from your home, and keep it with you. We have a water fountain that we can use, inshallah ta'ala, and that should suffice, bidnillah ta'ala. Okay, so again, this is the code if you want to use it. The way that I've set up these slides, and I shared them with you in the WhatsApp group, so you can actually access these slides. I do update them throughout the month because it's just a lot of work to put them together. You have no idea how much work went into putting some of these slides together, honestly. It's very difficult. I still have things that I have not fully completed. If you find typos or mistakes, you're welcome to let we'll have someone you can let know, inshallah, and we'll fix them as we go along. But don't download them because I update them. Not that I care that you have them, just you'll get an outdated version because I keep on updating them on a daily basis and adding things to them. What you'll find in these slides, aside from this, is I break down what the surahs are. Like, I actually put down it so you can use it to prepare. Like, you can actually use this to prepare throughout the month, throughout the day. You can go through the slides and you can read the juz' yourself. And I actually break this down. And I used these slides back when I started my thematic Quran tafsir class at Mac Westmount many years ago, 5-6 years ago. And then I used this recently in a series of lectures that we gave in an IDA course that we gave at Western. And these slides, it took a long time for me to build. But basically, these slides kind of go through what each group of verses talk about. So you'll see within here, I actually break down for you that from ayah this talking about that, ayah this talking about that, all falls within a theme. I explain the theme of the surah at the beginning, I put the theme at the end, I go through some miscellaneous pieces of information. So a lot of it is a lot to help you kind of understand the surah, what it's talking about. I talk about the clusters, the groups of surahs, what they talk about at the beginning and at the end. So it's a lot of information that I'm sharing with you to help, inshallah, deepen your understanding of it. But really the slide for the night, for every night, will be just this one here. This is what you're voting on in terms of the verses, and I'll just kind of go through some of reflections. But at the beginning, I will kind of break down the juz' for you. I won't go through those slides, all right? So I didn't put them here to go through them. That's a 2-hour, that's a 2-3 hour, unless you guys are willing to have, to start out Asr, we have Futur here and we continue until Isha. I can't go through those slides. Those slides are there, at your disposal for your use, inshallah, throughout the day. If you want to kind of connect with that juz' before we actually recite it during Taraweeh, which I think is, the smartest thing to do. If you struggle with your relationship with the Quran, this is the best way to do it. Just connect yourself to, go through these slides. It'll give you an understanding of what we're going to be reading that night. You can reflect on it. You can read it yourself, and then when you hear the Imam recite it. Inshallah, it'll mean something more, more profound and interesting to you. Inshallah ta'ala. But that's basically every night. I'll just go through this slide. If you come early, you can scan the QR code, and then we'll go through. I'll go through some of the verses that you chose. So I'll go back to the QR code. I'll leave it there for you if you haven't used it yet. You're welcome to. And then I'll just kind of summarize what we're going to be reading today. And then we'll go through the verses. So the beginning of the Quran, and if you want to hear more about what I'm talking about now, you can just go online. You'll find the Surah Summary series, which I ran over 4 years, 2 years here at 1 year here at Wellness, and 3 years before that at Mac Hyde Park and Mac Westmount. And I went through the summaries of all the surahs. So that I explain exactly what they're talking about, what goal they're trying to serve, what purpose they're trying to achieve. And I think it's an important way to look at the Quran. Like, it's not just understanding the individual verses, but also understanding what the surah in general is talking about and how they work together. So the first 10 juz, basically from Baqarah to At-Tawbah, that first cluster of surahs, which is almost a third of the Quran, they tell the story of the faith. Like they tell a story. Actually, the verses, the surahs themselves, in their sequence, they tell a story. Like just the theme of the surahs. If you look at the themes themselves in the sequence they have tell a story, and they tell a story of how this faith was designed, built, how it's going to survive, and what we need to do in order to make that happen. Which is very beautiful. It's like a second layer of understanding the Quran, not just the verses, kind of zooming out. Even the surahs in their sequence, they're telling you a story as well. So. That's what the Sab'at Tiwal, they call it the 7 long ones, aside from Anfal right before the end. It's not amongst the set. So there's 8 surahs. If you exclude Fatiha from Baqarah to At-Tawbah, there's 8 of them. And Anfal is not one of the long Sab'at Tiwal, but I put them as the 7 long surahs, as the first cluster of Quranic surahs, and they tell the story of the faith. And all of that is shared, inshallah, on the slides for you to read if you want to hear a little bit more. What does Surat Al Baqarah talk about? Surat Al Baqarah talks about what is it that we are here to do, like who we are and what our job is. It talks about our mission, which is being a Khalifa and being a servant, and the methodology or the way of life or the system, which is quote-unquote Islam, that you're going to use to actually achieve your goal. That's what Surah Al Baqarah does. That's why it's the longest surah in the Quran. It goes through almost everything that is needed. And then all the surahs after that just keep on commenting and explaining and expanding and going into depths. But Surah Al Baqarah goes through almost everything that you need. And tonight we'll read from 1 to 152, inshallah ta'ala. I'm not going to go through Surah Al-Fatiha. I maybe do that tomorrow because I went through a long introduction today and we took a lot of time already. So maybe do that tomorrow, inshallah. Do a little bit of an introduction to Surah Al-Fatiha. Because Surah Al-Fatiha is unique. It's on its own kingdom. It's its own universe. So Surah Al-Baqarah, the verses we're going to be reading, the first part of Surah Al-Baqarah is very simple. It tells you, if you go look at the introduction from 1 to 29, from Ayah 1 to 29, that's the introduction of not just Surah Al-Baqarah, of the whole Quran. And I put for you all the different points that it covers. But then the piece after that, it talks about the fact that you are a Khalifa. That's why Ayah number 30, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. You're a steward, someone who's responsible, a caregiver, someone who's going to take care of this planet, those on it, for their well-being in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the job, basically. And then it goes through examples. It tells us about the ones who did it really, about the first Khalifa, the one who was given this job at the beginning, how that first person made a mistake regarding that and then fixed it later, Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. And then it goes through another example of Banu Israel, those who were also given this designation and given this mission didn't do a great job. Sometimes they did all right, sometimes they didn't. The Quran is not always there to chastise Bani Israel. The Quran also talks about the times they did well, the times they stood by Musa, the times they defended themselves, that they stood. Like, the Quran is not interested in just, frowning upon a certain group all the time, but rather looking at their experience and teaching you. Here are the good things they did, replicate them. Here's what they didn't do well, don't do that. So that piece, that initial piece in Surat Al Baqarah that talks about Banu Israel, it goes through those verses, and I think I have it for you here, inshallah, to look at. So these are the points regarding the ayat Banu Israel. It talks about what they did wrong and what they did right, and how we should learn. The Quranic lessons are for us. They're not for Bani Israel. They're not reading it. They don't believe in any of it, and that's fine. That's their choice. But for us, these verses are for, here's what they did. They were also khulafa. They didn't do an amazing job. Do a better job yourself. And then the last piece of that first part of the first juz of Surat Al Baqarah gives you the example of those who did a really good job, and tells us the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and Ishaq and Yaqub and Ismail, which is why فَإِذْ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. And the word imam here is equivalent to the concept of khalifa. It's the same idea, all together. The second part of Surah Al-Baqarah, which we will begin today with just a slither, just a couple of verses, just ayah 152. It tells us, after it tells you you're the Khalifa, here's what your job is. Here's the first one. Here's the people who didn't do too well. Don't make their mistakes. Here's the people who did it really well. Do exactly like them. Now here's what you're going to use to actually achieve the goal. And it starts going through all aspects of Islam. That's why Hajj and Zakah and everything is in Surah Al-Baqarah. We'll only get through that first part there. Well, the first thing it tells us is always remember that you have a qibla, you have a direction. The qibla, when you stand here, just don't forget that. It's actually very meaningful if you can hold on to that in your mind as you go through your life. When you stand and you face Mecca, it's not just, the concept of facing Mecca is also very symbolic. It's reminding you that you have a direction. You know where you're going. Like, you know what the goal is. Don't lose touch of what that goal is. The unity of this ummah, the unity of the nation, the unity of the human race, the betterment of all of that, the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have a direction. Imagine someone who's walking aimlessly. No, you have qibla. That's why you have a qibla, you have a direction. You always know where to face. You always know where you're going. You always know what matters most. You always know how to prioritize things. You're never lost because you have a qibla. Someone who doesn't have aim, doesn't have a purpose, doesn't have a direction, they can get lost, but you can't because you have a qibla. And you'll stand towards it every day. So if you're lost, that means you don't understand what you're doing. You're facing Kaaba. That's the first house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the goal. It's that service. It's that worship. It's duplicating that. It's continuing that legacy. And that's what you're about. And that's what we're all about. And that's why Surah Al Baqarah, when this piece starts talking about the methodology of Islam, it starts by talking about the Qibla. All right, so that's a summary of what we're going to be talking about here. So here, take a snapshot of this. Yeah. So we'll close the voting, inshallah, for it. Oh, interesting. All right, so we're going to go through the verses, inshallah. We're going to reflect on a couple of them. All right, here we are. So I don't know what they're going to be. Now, I changed these from last year. So last year, if you attended here, these aren't the same verses. I changed them all, except maybe 7 or 8 of them all throughout the Quran. I just left them because I love them, and I love them all, but I left them for a purpose, and I'm hoping people actually vote them in and we actually talk about them. If not, it's no big deal. I'll probably just overrule you and become a dictator for a couple of minutes and do it anyways, but that's what I'm hoping to do. But all the ayat were updated, because every verse in the Quran is worthy of contemplation and reflection. So I just choose things randomly, or kind of spread it out throughout the juz for you to kind of listen to, and hopefully you can. So do you want to start with the first one? Start with the one voted the highest, inshallah. No, that's the whole point of voting. What's the point of I could have done chronological without the voting issue. Yes, top 6. Start with the top one. Yeah.
74.
Yeah, go ahead.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فويل للذين يكتبون الكتاب بأيديهم ثم يقولون هذا من عند الله ليشتروا به ثمنا قليلا فويل لهم مما كتبت أيديهم وويل لهم مما يكسبون.
That's 79. Where's 79? I don't see 79. So we're already failing. All right, so start with 74. So apparently we have to get people who can actually count to do this. Let's try again.
ثم قست قلوبكم من بعد ذلك فهي كالحجارة أو أشد قسوة وإن من الحجارة لما يتفجر منه الأنهار وإن منها لما يشقق فيخرج منه الماء وإن منها لما يهبط من خشية الله وما الله بغافل عما تعملون.
So this ayah in Surat Al Baqarah, it's a beautiful, beautiful verse, and it comes right after the story of the cow, the known story where they're commanded by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to slaughter a cow and take a piece of its bones and tap someone who had been murdered, and he told them who did it to them. And of course, it was very difficult and took them forever to do it because they wouldn't listen. And then the verse right after that, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُكُم مِّن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ. So he says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then your hearts became hardened after that. And this is a verse that I find to be it's a universal one. I don't think it's specific to any group of people. I think not only did it happen to Bani Israel, but it also happened to the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ajma'in, where also this, whether we like it or not, or whether we're willing to admit it or not, it occurred to all of us. ثُمَّ قَسَتْ. Thumma means it happened later, but it happened later, much later. So in Arabic, when you use fa, is to kind of say something happened right after something, and the distance of time or the interval of time was short. Thumma means it was like it's later, happened later, and that's exactly what occurred, and it occurs to all of us. Thumma qasat qulubukum. Then your hearts become hardened after that. فهي كالحجارة, and it becomes like rock. أو أشد قسوة, or harder than rock. وإن من الحجارة, and indeed there are rocks, there are types of rock. لما يتفجر منه الأنهار, where rivers of water will burst from these rocks. وَإِنَّ مِنْهَا لَمَا يَشَّقَّقُ فَيَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ الْمَاء. And amongst these rocks that will crack and water will come through them, maybe not exploding like rivers, but it'll come. وَإِنَّ مِنْهَا, and some of them لَمَا يَهْبِطُ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. These rocks will fall, will crumble out of the reverence and the fearfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's as if to say that even rocks will find a way to feel and understand and comprehend on a profound level the magnificence and the beauty of having a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even rocks. The ayah is saying your hearts became like rocks or worse. And there are even rocks that can change. Even rocks can find a way to crack open and for khayr to come out of them, or for them to have a moment where they just crumble in reverence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا اللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. That's the end of this ayah. And actually, it's the end of this ayah that tells us a little bit of what the whole point of it is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not indifferent, nor is He oblivious to what it is that you are doing. What is that you're doing? You're talking about, like the ayah is talking about a certain degree of spirituality. The ayah is talking about a feeling, the ability to feel, the ability to revere on a spiritual or heart-based level. And the ayah at the end of it says, well, Allah is not indifferent to that which you do, because it's all based on what we do. See, there are no hearts that are just made different than others. Like, everyone has the ability to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to find that tenderness and that openness and that ease and that closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And everyone can do it. It's what you do in life that allows you to either achieve that or it doesn't. It's the habits that you pick up. It's the mistakes that you make. It's the mistakes that you insist upon. It's the lifestyle that you take upon yourself instead of, or in contrast to another one. That's what holds you back. And He's saying subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's almost like this ayah is like almost shame on you. It's implied. Your hearts became hardened. It's like rock. He's saying, I have rock. I have rock that will burst rivers and will give water and will fall in reverence. And what's wrong with you? What's wrong with your hearts? Why are your hearts harder than rock? Why is it that you feel nothing? وَمَا اللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. And that's what Ramadan is for. That's what Ramadan is for. It's to change that reality. That's the point of this blessed month, is to, inshallah, change that reality for all of us. Allahumma ameen. Let's go to the ayah after it, inshallah. I think 109 it seemed to me.
ود كثير من أهل الكتاب لو يردونكم من بعد إيمانكم كفارا حسدا من عند أنفسهم من بعد ما تبين لهم الحق فاعفوا واصفحوا حتى يأتي الله بأمره إن الله على كل شيء قدير.
So this ayah says, وَدَّ كَثِيرٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. There are many of the people of the book, لَوْ يَرُدُّونَكُمْ, they wish in their hearts, they wish they could send you back or get you to leave what it is that you believe in. لَوْ يَرُدُّونَكُمْ مِّن بَعْدِ إِيمَانِكُم. If they can get you to stop holding on to that which you hold on to, stop believing in that which you believe in. They wish that they could just maybe drive you astray from it. حَسَدًا مِّنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ. Because they have a little bit of hasad inside their hearts. مِّن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الْحَقِّ. After they see the righteousness in that which you carry, and that's what you have. When they see the righteousness in it, this is a very important piece in the Quran. It's talking about a part of human nature that we all know about. Sometimes it's very difficult to admit after 10 or 15 years or 20 years that you were wrong. It's really hard, especially if you committed to something like really powerfully. It's hard to backtrack and say, yeah, well, I was wrong. SubhanAllah, one of our teachers, Sheikh Ayman Suwaid, حفظه الله, amazing gentleman, extremely strict qari in the Quran, extremely strict. We all ran away from ever being a student. And I regret it now, because obviously had I not done that, I would have been much more happy about my credibility. But he was too strict back in Damascus. He was a lovely gentleman, he was very, very knowledgeable. And for 20 years, there was an issue in tajweed, انفراج الشفتين في الإخفاء. Anyways, it's a little thing in tajweed that he defended for 20 years straight. He was difficult to argue against, and he defended a certain way of doing things. Despite the fact that a lot of scholars did not agree with him, he defended it. He was a known voice for it. For 20 years, he was known for it. 20 years later, after 20 years of doing this, he would actually stand publicly and say, he would admit, he would say this, he would say, I was wrong. I was wrong. I looked into this. I've had a discussion with SubhanAllah, one of his teachers who pointed something out for him in a book, and they had discussion, and he took it all back after 20 years. And one of my other teachers say that because he did that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala barakah. All this barakah you see of this, most people who have heard Sheikh Ayman Suwaid, the barakah of the knowledge of his knowledge of the Quran and the spreading of the Quran comes from his ability that he had no ego when it came to doing the right thing. No ego at all. He talked about it when he saw it was wrong. Most people can't do that. This ayah is saying a lot of Ahl al-Kitab would want you to stop being Muslim just because they're envious, because now they see that it's the haqq, but it's too hard for them to admit that they've been wrong all their lives, so they just want you to be wrong. Sometimes it's easier that way. Instead of me changing my ways to do something right, if I can just get you to stop doing the right thing that you're doing, then we're both wrong. We're equally wrong now, and it's easier that way, because that's what hasad does. Beware and be careful of that. Be very, very careful of that problem. Be careful of allowing anything in this world to hold you back from saying or doing or being on the side of what is haqq, what is righteous, when you see it and when you find it. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us to do about that? حَسَدًا مِّنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ مِّن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الْحَقِّ. What do we do? فَاعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا. فَاعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا. Pardon them. وَاصْفَحُوا. Forgive them. حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the day of judgment and فَاعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا. Wallahi, it's an amazing ayah. If you haven't read this ayah before, read it and think about it. The Quran is saying many of them will see what you have. They'll identify it as being haqq. And because they just can't seem to get over whatever it is that they're struggling with to join you, they just hope that you would leave. So they'll work towards you leaving it because they're envious of it. Allah doesn't tell us, well then, rub it in their faces and fight back. And no, fa'afu wasfahu. Just be tender. Forgive them and pardon them. Forgive them and pardon them. They're struggling, and maybe if you're not vicious about it, they'll find it easier. Don't close doors. Wallahi, don't close doors, and don't. These doors can be closed if it gets, so that's fine. But don't close doors and burn bridges when it comes to people's ability to find righteousness again, or enter Islam, or do something right. Don't be the person who burns that bridge. Someone's saying, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to change. I want to do the right thing. Don't confront them and fight with them and force them to take a principled stand against doing the right thing because you decided to just confront them at the wrong time. Because when you do that, you make it hard for them to go back again. Now, don't corner someone who's doing something wrong if they're not ready yet. Leave them because you don't want to burn that bridge. You want to keep it open, keep the door open so that one day they can come back again. If you go after them viciously, then they get cornered. They have to take a principled stand about what they do, and now they can't leave anymore. Now they're so invested in it, they can't leave. It looks bad. So many people will be, shamata. So many people will rub it in and laugh at them and talk about them, and it's hard. So they end up stuck on the wrong side of the rails because one person on the right side of the rails didn't have the right attitude, didn't have the right spiritual understanding of it. Read this ayah. فَعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا. It's beautiful. Wallahi, it's beautiful. فَعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا. Forgive them. Look away. Leave it. Maybe one day if you do that, their hearts will find the leniency and they'll come back again. It's a beautiful concept. Let's do the one. Do you know what the one after is? Yalla.
ولا تلبسوا الحق بالباطل وتكتموا الحق وأنتم تعلمون.
Are we sure I did that one? What number is that? Do I see 42? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Yeah. So at the beginning of the piece of this surah that talks about Banu Israel, it pointed out a couple of things, Ya Bani Israel, and it starts talking to them, Awfu bi'ahdi, Awfi bi'ahdi. It went through a number of things, وَآمِنُوا. And then in the midst of these commands that they're being given, O Bani Israel, you should have done this, O Bani Israel, do this. It tells them, وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ. Number 2, وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. We talked about two things. These are extremely dangerous things. And just like again, everything that you find in the Quran that's being addressed to Bani Israel or any other group on the planet, the goal of that address is so that we can make sure we don't do it. That's the point of it. If you walk away from all of these lessons with just that, inshallah, it'll be worth your time. Because so much of the Quran is sometimes ignored because we feel like, well, he was talking to Qawm Musa or Qawm Isa or Qawm Ibrahim or Qawm Nuh. No. Everything there that is talking about them or to them, addressing them, is actually for us, so that we can reflect on it, so that we don't fall into the same pitfalls that they did, so that we don't have the same types of shortcomings. Or what's the point of the Quran otherwise? So when he says, وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ, do not confuse haqq and batil. Labs is when something becomes unclear. Lubs is to wear something, right? So what's the commonality? When you dress, I don't know, I can't see you anymore. Like I can't see your physicality because you have it all covered up. No one knows what, you don't know how fat I am right now because I'm dressed. You don't know. If I wasn't, it would be very obvious. It's labs, it's confusion, it's lack of clarity, right? Labs, that's what it is. So when you dress yourself, you're making it unclear, which is the point of getting dressed. Another maybe. The point of being dressed is that people don't know what you look like under them. So if you're dressed in something that is fully describing it, it defeats the purpose of getting dressed in the first place. If you're going to dress in a way where it's describing your physicality fully, then why need you get dressed? Just walk out. It's easier. It's quicker. It's much more honest and it's much more real. The whole point of getting dressed is that's not anyone's business. No one has access to that. That's personal. Those who have access to it are family members and your children and your spouse, and that's it. So that's where labs comes from. لا تلبسوا الحق بالباطل. Don't dress haqq with batil. Don't cover it all up. Don't mix it and make it confusing so people don't know what is right and what is wrong anymore. And this verse, I'm surprised it actually made it in the votings altogether because it's so directed to people like myself than it is to anyone else. But there is something in it obviously for you. Be very careful in any argument that you have or any time that you're talking about something or trying to convince. Be very careful of using these philosophical fallacies and playing around with the words and the ideas and lying to people to get your way or to try to manipulate them to see something or to get them to actually buy into your agenda without actually being very clear about it. لا تلبس الحق بالباطل. Make haqq and batil very, just differentiate them well. Because once you mix them and confuse them, then we don't know what we're doing anymore. And this is such a big problem. You're going to find this in your life a lot. You're going to find the urge to do it because you'll be able to. Like human beings have the intelligence to be able to do that when they want to, especially if they know all the pieces and other people don't. See, when I sit here and talk about the Quran, this is an amana that is so heavy that I worry about. I've been doing these duros for 20 years now in my life, and I still worry about these things. Not because I'm publicly speaking, that went a long time ago. It's because of the amana of what I'm doing. I'm trying to explain to you what he said, subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I am not objective, if I don't put my biases away, my preferences, what it is that I like and what I don't like, what I fear, what I hope for, and if I bring myself into these verses or my agenda or what it is that I want, then I'm mixing up, and that's a problem. Because you don't have all the information, you don't know all the details. Now I'm misleading you, I'm guiding you along. And you're trusting me to explain things to you in an appropriate manner and to be honest with you and to be objective and to be clear. And I'm not doing it, and then that's a big problem. Second one, وَلَا تَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And don't withhold righteousness, or that which is, don't withhold the truth. وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, when you know that you are. Don't withhold the truth when you know that you are. For the last 150 days or so, this is exactly what we are watching happen in the world, where the reality and the truth is very clear. It's very clear. The videos that we watch are made by individuals standing in the midst of the horror and the trauma. They're just taking these videos and sending them via WhatsApp or some other social media platform, and we're just receiving them on our phones. It's not some media news outlet that is there with its. You don't have to use those to actually see what's happening. Like you can, obviously, you can go to the news outlets and see certain things, but you don't have to. It's people who are documenting the pain and the suffering and the agony, and everyone's just acting. It's just withholding the truth of what's actually going on. Now we know that they're doing that. The question is, do we do the same? There's no purpose of these verses if we don't take a look at ourselves and wonder if we do the same. Do we hold back or withhold pieces of the truth as well? When we are thinking about certain things, talking about certain things, spreading certain things? Are we fully truthful about every aspect of what we're doing here? Or do we withhold information as well, if it suits us or if it serves our purposes? It's funny that this verse exists at the beginning of the piece of the surah that talks to us about where Bani Israel went wrong. Right at the beginning. This is like ayah number 3. Ya Bani Israel. Within that chapter, Ya Bani Israel, اذكروا نعمتي أوفوا بعهدي وأوفوا وآمنوا بما أنزلت مصدقا ولا تلبسوا الحق. Do not do this. Do not mix up haqq and batil, and do not withhold truth when you know it. When you know it's the truth, don't withhold it. Don't lie. Ya akhi, don't lie about things. Wallahi, lying has never helped anyone. Lying is when you withhold truth, when truth is there and it's lied about, is withheld, it's like it's like a twitch in the fabric of reality. And that twitch is going to cause a ripple. It's going to cause a ripple, and that ripple at some point will smack us all in the face. It's just a matter of time. Like, it's impossible that you do that. It's not that you lie and you withhold the truth and that it doesn't somehow come back later on and serve you well. It's impossible. It always will. It always will. This is the reality of the world. It's like it goes 360. You send out that withholding of the truth or that lie, and it goes, and it's like a boomerang. It's a boomerang. Goes around, comes around. It just goes around, and it picks up momentum. Here's the problem. It picks up momentum, it's a small little ripple. By the time it comes back, it's a wave. And it hits you so hard, it knocks you unconscious. So be very careful about this piece. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of the people of the haqq, inshallah ta'ala. So the ayah after it, if we know what the...
إن الله لا يستحيي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا يضل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين.
So he says subhanahu wa ta'ala in this beautiful ayah, right at the end, this is still a part of the introduction of the whole Quran. This is before ayah number 30. So the first couple, there's 29 verses are introduction. They're really, really powerful, and they're totally worth like a full series of just contemplation. They're really beautiful. And this is one of them. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَا بَعُوضَةً فَمَا فَوْقَهَا. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not ashamed or embarrassed of giving an example of a mosquito. فَمَا فَوْقَهَا. فَمَا فَوْقَهَا means, or anything that is above it in terms of its smallness. So, because the reason that he's saying this subhanahu wa ta'ala is that a mosquito is a small creature. People back then would look at these small creatures and say, why are you talking about the ankabut? Or you're using all the, or hudhud, you're using examples of small creatures. They're useless, they're worthless, there's nothing interesting about them. You're taking a small creature, talking about, there's a surah in the Quran called the naml, ants. Why are you talking about ants? So they would use this as a way to say why. So Allah says, I'm not embarrassed of giving an example, using something as small as a mosquito, فَمَا فَوْقَهَا, or something that is smaller than that. It has nothing to do with what's on the head of the mosquito. I know maybe you saw that at some point in your life. Has nothing to do with living on top of the mosquito. I'm sure something lives on the top of the mosquito. That's not what it means linguistically. It can't mean that in Arabic. I'm sorry, the Arabic language does not allow. فَمَا فَوْقَهَا means anything that is smaller than it in size, even smaller. Why? فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. Those who believe will know this is the truth from their Lord. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَيَقُولُونَ مَاذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهَذَا مَثَلًا. Those who disbelieve will say, what does Allah want with this example? يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. Many people will be misguided by these types of examples. وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. Many people will find guidance through these examples. وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَى الْفَاسِقِينَ. And it's only those who want to go astray that will be misguided by these examples. Why? Because when does size really matter in terms of Allah's creation? Now, size may matter in other things, but not in Allah's creation. In Allah's creation, there's really no importance to it. The detail that exists within what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created is beyond our ability to comprehend. Now, today, because we came up with microscopes and we're able to actually go in and zoom in more and more every day to see things that are happening on an atomic level sometimes within cells and within the biology, we found out today that every cell is its own kingdom. And the mosquito itself has an extremely interesting structure and is designed in a very, very efficient manner to serve the purpose for which it exists for, which till this day most of us don't even know what it is. Some biologists walk around saying, hey, if you wipe out mosquitoes altogether, nothing changes in the world. Allahu A'lam. I don't believe that's the case for anything. I think everything exists, and there's a purpose of existence for everything, whether we can figure out what it is or not. But he's trying to explain, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that there's everything that he created, there's an example in it for you to learn from. There's something to learn from every single thing that is made, if you're willing to look at it and learn from it. Not just the scientific stuff, which is obviously extremely important from a biological and physiological perspective, to learn from these things so that we can progress and improve our lifestyles and improve people's lives and make things better. But also there's symbolism in everything that he made that is worthy of reflection, even if it's as small as a mosquito, or something that is annoying as a mosquito. That has to you, there's no value to it. There's no value. It's only an annoyance. If it didn't exist, it'd be ahsan. And there's nothing to it. No. Inna Allah la yastahi an yadrib. He's not embarrassed to give an example of something as small as a mosquito or smaller, because within it you're going to find something that you did not know. You will learn something valuable to yourself. And some people will use that in the wrong way. The ayah after it. And we have one more. Or actually we don't. We don't. Stop. So just a few housekeeping things. So we'll make inshallah adhan, and then we'll pray sunnah, then we'll make iqamah, and we'll pray isha immediately. We'll give you, is that what we did last year? No, we didn't. No, we didn't do it. So this we'll stick to what we did last year. We're going to pray, we'll make idhan, we'll make iqamah, we'll pray isha, and then we'll pray sunnah, and then we'll start tarawih inshallah right after. Again, you can't, when it comes to inshallah coming here throughout the month, trying and come as early as you can. So if you want to get a spot in the main prayer hall, carpool with people because of the parking issue. Please follow the directions of the brothers and sisters outside who are trying to help organize the parking. They're doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're volunteers. They're trying to help make things a little bit easier for everyone. We don't want to park in places that harm our neighbors or harm the facilities around us, institutions around us that actually are quite kind to us. Make sure that you bring your blue bottle with you, or whatever bottle. Don't bring plastic bottles with you. Try to lessen the amount of waste. Otherwise, inshallah ta'ala, I welcome everyone here in the main prayer hall, up in the extension, or out in the tent. Ahlan wa sahlan, jazakumullah khair. May this be a blessed Ramadan, inshallah, for all of us. Jazakumullah khair. Make adhan, inshallah. Make it come.